Welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Bread for Soul Convos with myself, Sir LSG. I've got Chicago legend on the show this morning, VICK Lavender. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, what's going on, brother? How you feel?
I'm super great, man. I'm happy to be chatting to you again because you and I met while you were here in South Africa, 2012, 2013. You were here for some time, I want to know just your view with regards to South Africa. What do you think? What do you speak most about, like when you talk about South Africa?
Well, first things first, man. I think for any African American who has never been to SA, that was extremely big for me. Because if you would have told me when I was 15, 16 years old that musically, that my love for music would take me to the place where my ancestors are from somewhere in Africa. And so just to get a chance to come to Africa was a very spiritual and surreal experience. That's the first thing. Um, I mean, just stepping off the plane and setting foot on that soil, that was huge, man. I will never forget the first time that I got off the plane and set foot there. I had to catch myself because I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And then meeting the people, getting a chance to hang out with Claude, Vinny, Trevor, Nana, China. They showed me mad love. And I want to say what's up to them dudes, man. Especially Trevor. Trevor's probably somewhere drinking right now. So, but no, I love all you guys, man. I love South Africa as a whole because of the way it embraced the way you guys embraced my art, man. Is I will forever be indebted to South Africa for taking my art to another level. And and the most amazing part is actually how young you guys are that love this music. So you guys know the music, like you know the artists. You guys have done your homework. So for me, like I mean, like the difference between uh like a Louis Vega record or like a Josh Milan record. I mean, you guys could listen to the first 8 bars and say, "Yo, Vic made that record,"
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so that was very impressive, and I'm very honored to be a part of the culture there. So yeah,
Yeah, bro. And I think for us as well, having your kind of music, like the soulful type of music, is what has resonated a lot with a lot of South Africans with regards to your
right.
music. And it's so dope for me to see you releasing a lot of stuff again, because I do at some point want to get to ask you about there seem to be kind of some period where, or let me just actually ask you about it now. Like there's a period where it felt like you took a break off releasing a lot of music. What was happening back then?
You know what? I never took a break from making music. I want to find a new way to release it. Um, Track Source has been a valuable asset to me. So you'll never hear me say anything bad about Track Source. But the reason I'm releasing so much stuff now on my Bandcamp page because Bandcamp allows artists certain freedoms that you can't really gain on Track Source simply because you can create your own Bandcamp page. And so I know when people want a Vic Lavender record, they're going to go to the Vic Lavender Bandcamp page. Whereas sometimes you can get sidetracked because there's so many artists on Track Source for you to pick from. So so again, and then I started concentrating on releasing more vinyl. And as you know, vinyl takes longer to get out than digital. Hell, I can make a record today and release it digitally tomorrow. But with vinyl, it's not like that. There's like a 60-day waiting period for the vinyl to come back. And so recently we started sophisticated like distribution where we're doing our own vinyl releases. And I gotta say, listen, I wouldn't be in the position to release vinyl without the help of Joe Clausell. Um, Joe did me a huge favor, man. Back in 2010, we met at the Winter Music Conference in 2010, and he asked me about from Chicago to New York, and he was like, "Yo, man, you say, yo, man, you should release that on vinyl." I'm like, "Yo, I'm just a small label, I can't afford that." And Joe did me a solid, man. Joe looked out for me. So from 2010 to 2019, he was doing my distribution for me, and that was big. That allowed me to get to the point to where I can now release my own vinyl and then do my own distribution because of all the connections that I have from him.
Yeah. And
And so,
yeah, sorry.
and I so to answer your question, it was I went through a period because I was concentrating more on vinyl, and as you can see now, I have a lot of different pieces of vinyl coming out on different labels, and so like there's a waiting period when you're doing vinyl like that.
Mm, mm. Nah, it makes sense. Makes sense totally. And uh, so just still on the vinyl issue, I do have to ask you though, like, about the importance of vinyl. Do you still find it? I mean, obviously you do find it relevant because you released still some vinyl records. But why is
Yeah,
it such an important part, especially now in this digital era?
file sharing, file sharing, man. That's that. We as artists, man, like we put a lot of work into um, putting out the best music that we can possibly put out, and like to see it given away. Man, you go to these sites and a lot of these cats are giving your music away, and you can't really do anything about it. And one of the advantages to releasing vinyl is that if you pay $16 for a vinyl record, the chances of you giving it to anybody is slim and none. So like that cuts down on the file sharing, right? I mean, like just in itself. And then too, like when you're doing your own distribution, it's like that cuts out the middleman. So like you're getting pretty much all of your money plus probably three times that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then two people in releasing vinyl puts you in another. It just puts you in a different room. It puts you in a different conversation because everybody can't release vinyl. Because of the cost, and also too because of the distribution. If you don't have the distribution, then you can have 300 copies sitting in your basement. I mean, like with I think there it is featuring D Mills. We had close to 400 copies pressed, and I think I have like 20 now because those records sold immediately.
yeah.
And so like the money that the label put into it, like we got back our money times I think two. So to me, the file sharing and you just being in a different conversation to me is worth doing vinyl.
Yeah. And I'm really interested then in like the thing that you mentioned that you would press 300, 400 copies. Like you, some records really sell a lot, and some actually don't sell a lot. I've been to Ralph Gum's uh,
Yeah,
basement, and he's got like a lot of some old go-go stuff that is just sitting there, like the lesser popular records that obviously did not really people didn't really jump onto. um you've had some releases where they were only you would only do vinyl, like, so in that situation, how do you decide, like, what informs your decision to say I will only release this on vinyl, or this or the other track? Like, what informs that decision?
well, it is definitely like a hit or miss. A record that you think is dope might not catch on. So like there's some measure of luck involved in it as well. But Um, Usually vocals sell on vinyl. I was very fortunate though, because when I did the 1445 EP, which had Girl on the flip side of it, Joe Cosell did distribution, and that record sold like hotcakes. And that was rare for a instrumental to do that. But I have to give Joe Cosell and Louis Vega a lot of love for that record because they pushed the hell out of that record. They were playing it a year before it was released. Like that, I mean, Joe was playing that. Both Joe and Louis were playing both sides of that record a year before it was released. So there was a so like that record was highly anticipated. So when it came out, it just sold like hotcakes. And after that, we followed up with the sophisticated distribution of There It Is featuring D Mills. And so it was like so many people wanted that record who weren't DJs. So what we decided to do was we decided to do a digital radio edit of it. And I was informed of that by my buddy Vince Adams. Shout out to Vince Adams, who was playing the record. And Vince is a DJ that plays everything. He plays everything from hip hop to like R&B to neo soul. But that was a record that he heard and that he loved. So I sent it to him. He played it on his radio. Well, he played it on his internet show, and like the responses to that record was crazy. And but it was to a lot of people who were not DJs. It was to the average music lover.
Mm.
So we were forced to create a digital radio edit of it. And so I mean, listen, um, a lot of it is a crapshoot, and you don't know for sure which records will sell and which ones don't. So you just really hope for the best. Like you do your best in judgment. But I know vocals. If you put out a dope vocal on vinyl, it's gonna move. If you get it to the right people,
Mm.
and like the right people play it, it's gonna move. But a record that was funny because when I did the Sexy Things record, that was an instrumental,
Yeah.
and I had no idea it would catch on the way it did in SA. But DJ Paquette, Vinny, and a lot of other guys loved that record, and like that record caught on and blew up in South Africa. So like respect to those guys for playing it, and respect to South Africa for embracing it.
Man, and it's a massive record too, man. I play too. A lot of the stuff I think that you've been releasing last year and this year, I've been really, really getting into that. I wanna still just ask you one last thing about vinyl, and that is when a vinyl does well, like and it sells a lot. Obviously it could be like 400 copies. Do you now never get, if it was a vinyl only release, do you ever get tempted to be like, okay, this thing did well, let me just drop it digitally as well?
Nah, nah. It because that to me would kill the legend of it. Now you can't get it. I mean, I got it,
Yeah.
but you can't get it. So like that kills the legend of it. So listen, man, I don't believe always in quantity. I believe more so in quality. And so if you get it, you get it. If you don't, then you don't. Um, but but I would consider going back and doing a shorter version, a different mix for digital. But you know what? I want the people that bought that vinyl to feel special. Okay, because they spent a lot of money on their vinyl, and I don't want to necessarily come back and give it away digitally. And so a lot of that too is out of the respect for the people that purchased the vinyl.
I hear you.
So
I hear you.
so like for the people that purchased the vinyl, they don't have to worry about like this guy paying 199 for it,
Mm.
like when they paid $20 for it. So I respect. So a lot of it too is out of the respect for the people that purchased the vinyl. I want them to feel special. and listen, man, listen. I'm gonna make music till I can't anymore.
Yeah,
So so it'll be other records that they can get, and so like next time they know when they see a Vic Lavender vinyl, they better get it, or
yeah.
else it won't be available.
Yeah, yeah, man, I hear that, and I think there is something, some power to having bought something and really knowing that, okay, this is something special. Like it's
Right.
also it's an important part of the vinyl culture as well. Like
Exactly. And
having,
and so I can remember back in the '90s, man, when I was buying these dope records and they would run out, and my boys would ask me, "Yo, man, where you get them?" I would say, "I went to gramophones and bought it." And like they would go to the record store, "Hey, man, like they're out of print," and I would just be like, "You know what? I have this and you don't, so I
yeah,
can play this and you can't because I'm not giving you my copy."
yeah,
So
yeah,
so I think it's very important for the vinyl culture that the producers that make the vinyl think of them as well. Think of them as somebody who purchased your art and like they didn't have to, but like they loved it enough to actually purchase the art. So I want to respect them and
yeah,
not necessarily put it out on digital and say, "Hey man, I paid 29. I paid $20 for this vinyl, and like you got it for 199." Nah,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
believe in that.
Yeah, and I
So
hear you. Before we continue, I want to ask you if you mind just wiping the camera off with your shirt, maybe like just to get a bit of clarity.
okay,
It could be like a bit.
yeah, okay,
Yeah,
okay. Is that can you see it now?
yeah, yeah. It's slightly better. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
So just talking about releasing music, what I've also noticed, um, I love Bandcamp, and Bandcamp is such a dope platform for artists because for me, like having that ability to have a database of everyone who buys your music is such a powerful thing, because you could send a direct mail to each and every person who buys your music if you want to, if you
Yeah.
want to promote, or if you want to have a new kind of song that's only for your fans, you can do that. But also, the flexibility of Bandcamp is that you literally name your price, the price that you want to charge for your songs. And yeah, I've been checking your songs on Bandcamp, and you are not cheap. You are quite. It's $5 a song. What are
Oh
some
yeah.
of the reasons you charge so much for the
Well,
music?
it, because for number one, a lot of those songs you can only get it from that site, and two, I sort of take the analogy back to vinyl. Um, I think the one thing we have to get people used to again is actually covering the art. And I think that if the art is so cheap, you don't cover it. And I think it's easier to give away. I think that mm, you know this is going to sound crazy, but I think the more people that can get it, I think the more it kind of hurts the record's chances of having any type of shelf life. I think there's so many records come out today on such a digital platform, a record can only be hot for 2 or 3 weeks,
Mm,
right? And so I think that if a limited amount of people have this record, I think the shelf life of the record can live on.
mm,
Um, I'm not an artist that believes that everybody playing your record is always a great thing. I think that if you have the right people playing your record, that's that's like a great thing. If I got Vinny, Trevor, China, Claude running my jam, then people are gonna know are gonna want are gonna want to know, yo, man, like, what is this? Like, what are you playing? Yo, man, like that's a Vic Lavender jam. So it makes it, like I said, it makes the art more coveted, as like what I'm saying, as opposed to being like a 2 week or 3 week wonder.
mm,
Like that record have a 2 or 3 year lifespan, and in that period of time, I'm making more jams that can have a 2 or 3 year lifespan. I mean, all of us are not blessed with having such a huge popularity thing to where you can put out, like Louis can put out a jam a week.
yeah,
and then people are going to play it for 3 years because
Yeah.
it's Louis.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And Louis has earned that right,
Mm.
and I respect to that cat. But but listen, everybody's journey in this business isn't the same.
Mm.
So I'm not trying to, I don't try to mimic anyone's journey.
Mm.
I try to create my own path and then sort of live or die with that.
Yeah. Nah, I get that and I understand it completely, bro. I'm I do have to ask you about, the way you look at music like that, that kind of um, purity of art. Specifically, I'm talking about the productions that you make. You do a lot of live instrumentation, especially like in the past. I mean, even now, the recent releases, I've been getting the sense of that too. But you would have a lot of recorded percussion, live piano, and like, where does that kind of that culture of, or not really culture, but that way of production, where does the inspiration come from?
Listening to a lot of well, growing up and listening to a lot of jazz fusion, a lot of soul music in the mid well, all the way from the mid 70s to like the mid 80s. There were different concepts, but they were all using live instrumentation. They were using a level of composition that isn't always affiliated with house music. Uh, for a lot of house music, it's just tracks, and like for me, I wanted to make songs. Like even if they were instrumental, I wanted to make songs. So what I'm saying. So like you hear, just stuff that was formula stuff. Where you had I mean, like even if there's an instrumental, like I arrange my instrumentals the same way I arrange my vocals.
Mm,
It's just the instrumental doesn't have vocals, so there's a verse,
mm,
a chorus, verse, hook, bridge, vamp,
mm,
and so that's my formula. And if it's an instrumental, it's like the instruments are the vocals to where I'll do a call and response thing
mm,
where like you might hear on the vocal, like you might hear like on the first verse, like you might hear a piano solo,
mm,
and then like going into the change, like you hear strings, and then like coming out the chorus going back to the verse, like you'll hear a vibraphone solo,
yeah,
like even a synthesizer solo.
yeah,
So it's to me it's all about arrangement.
mm,
It's how do you want to make house music? Like, do you want to do tracks? Which is nothing wrong with tracks because I've done those as well, and like I will continue to do them. It all depends on what I'm going for. Like what feel I'm going for, and and so instruments play like a huge part. Obviously, in my music. If you've heard my music, instrumentation is big.
mm, mm, mm. No,
So
I get that. I mean, I do similar as well with regards to my own productions. I have, a lot of live instrumentation, and for me, what that gives the music some kind of a live band feel. Because my plan is to eventually take it on as something that I can have a performance not only as a DJ but also as a live band, as a live performance, because I
yeah,
see my music being that too, that. And so from the creation, it's kind of like something that I always, most of the time, strive for. But also doing that doesn't come cheap. You when as soon as you work with a lot of musicians, it's starting to get costly because I don't play everything. If anything, I would be sometimes not even playing any instruments. Maybe just doing
yeah.
really the basic compositions, but leave everything else to the artist.
Well,
How do you balance the money and the creation of the music?
well, a lot of these guys I work with, like Mike Logan Sr. I've been working with Mike since 1998. Vijay Telesnayak since 2006. And so what happens is if you're in this business long enough, and like you practice that particular art, you're going to run across opportunities. Um, a lot of these guys are so big, man. As far as the musicians I use, they don't have to do this,
Mm.
but like they believe in my art, and so you know what I'm saying. So like, there's a balancing act there, and lately I've been playing a lot of my own stuff, and so I might call Spike, yo, Spike, I got this dope jam. I might need this real complicated like composition for it, and like Spike will come through the crib, and then we'll knock it out. But a lot of it is, I do a lot of his productions, so it sort of pans out, but obviously there are some things that you can't barter.
Yeah.
Like as an artist, like you want the best possible product, and then you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And it's and like there's a balancing act, like I mean, like there are some things that are give and take, but you just have to balance it. And with all of my relationships with all these different musicians and all these different vocalists, um, I've been able to do that.
And still just talking about the money issue, then I'm very interested to find out how you've managed to sustain yourself financially, in a scene like Chicago, where it's like house music is there really, like, but it's really pockets, like you had explained to me. How where would you say most of your money comes from, and how do you manage to sustain yourself?
Well, most of my money comes from production. That was the one thing that sustained me during the pandemic. Was if you like if you've noticed, you've seen vinyl releases on Local Talk. You've seen vinyl releases on Wrong Notes Records. You've seen it on Visions Records. You've seen it on like what's the other one? AMNA records. So a lot of it is production. Listen, I can go to my um, email address right now, and there are at least 3 or 4 people that want productions for their label. So I have no shortage of work. You know what I'm saying? So I'm able to pick and choose which ones I want to do first. Like I have a release coming out on R&S Records. I have one coming out. I have a Robert Owens remix I did for Wistful Old Junkies Records. So like I have no shortage of work that's coming my way. So that's how I'm able to sustain.
Yeah, man.
And then also too with the Evident Bandcamp,
Yeah,
like Bandcamp is artist friendly. For you guys who are not on Bandcamp, you guys need to get on Bandcamp.
definitely. And Bandcamp is so dope that even the percentage that they take, it's highly favors you as the artist.
Oh, and then also Bandcamp is real time money. If you make 300 today, you get 300 tomorrow.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's another thing. You're not waiting 6 months for a statement. Like, hey, yeah,
man, waiting, and listen, and like it's no knock against the other guys. It's just that Bandcamp came up with a formula that's artist friendly, and and, and but also with Bandcamp, like you just can't magically put stuff up that think it's going to sell. Like you have to promote it, and that's where the other hat. That's where you switch hats and and you become a promoter of of your own music. And but man, but to me that's like to me that's just the evolution of it. With all the big record labels, with a lot of artists now coming moving from the bigger labels and doing their own independent stuff, I think that's becoming the template where it's like the less people you need, the less people you have to pay.
yeah, yeah,
You know, and
yeah,
so so if I can do my own graphics design, and these were things I had to learn. Like I could do my own graphics now. I could, like I have Facebook pages and stuff like that. So that certain times of the day that people are on it more than other times of the day. But also as an international artist, you have to know all the time zones. So it is not so like when you see us traveling around the world, playing jams, it ain't just about that. It's about knowing the craft and knowing the craft you're in A through Z.
Mm, mm. In 2008, when you launched your label Sophisticado, um, I want to ask you really, like, especially about the earlier releases of that time. Which of those would you say really caught you by surprise on how well they did?
Well, I got to give another shout out to my man Abico Soul, who did the first Kiss remix and he did the Vaporizer remix.
Yeah,
Those records took off at SA.
yeah.
So, but if you ask me the record that took me by surprise the most, it would be Another Girl.
Oh, yeah.
It would be Another Girl, and simply because it's not necessarily a dance record. It is it although it has a dance tempo, like it's really a record that's full of composition.
Yeah,
And if you know house music, a lot of times the more simple, the more popular.
true.
And so that record was made just as a personal favorite of mine. But like when I put it out, like I had no idea it was going to catch on the way it did.
Yeah. And for such a long song too, like, because like you say,
Yeah.
the composition, there's a lot of like instrumentation happening in between, a lot of
Well,
bridges.
it is a true 12 inch, and as you know, I make real long records because I don't like to take out anything.
Yeah.
I think all the things that the musicians that I use, I think it's like I kind of take the approach, and I don't know if it's necessarily the right approach. It's more of a selfish approach to where like these guys are so dope. I just have a hard time editing out anything,
I hear you.
and so and trust me when I tell you, if if I put out a record that was 11 minutes, it was really about 18 minutes because so like, you know what I'm saying like I have records that I personally play out, versions that are out that are like really longer,
Yeah.
and people yo man, like where'd you get that version? Well, that's the version I never put out because it was too long.
Yeah.
And so it's as a like but that's the cool thing about being an independent record label owner, is that you can pretty much do what you want to do. Now you may have to live with the fact that it may not be successful,
Yeah.
but as an independent artist, you're making your own rules. Like I mean, like there are no rules.
Yeah, yeah, true. I mean, it's also kind of like a jazz way of doing records, like you would have Miles Davis in the past doing like a 45
Yeah,
minute record or something like that, and I had a funny story actually when I was watching the documentary where it was actually John Coltrane, and the musicians would be so
and like
pissed.
Miles asked him, and Miles Davis asked him, "Hey man, why your solo so long?"
Yeah.
Yeah, Miles Davis asked him, he said, "Man, why your solo so long?" But I think that's a direct correlation to how I view my records. I don't always view them as house records. I, you know, I really take a jazz arrangement approach, although it's arranged in a like a typical way a record should be arranged. I just make each part longer, and so like when I vamp out, I like for my guys to go for what they know, and and in that, I think somebody asked me similar to what Miles asked Coltrane, "Hey man, hey Vic, man, why your solo so long?" I do 32 bar solos,
Yeah.
but that I just think that in that moment, I just think in that moment that that the solo is sort of flowing with the record, and like they become one,
Mm,
and
mm,
it's kind of hard for me to separate them because I don't want to lose that feeling that I got when I initially heard it. I want you to get that feeling too.
mm.
And so it's kind of hard for me to, like to come out of them. So a
Yeah.
lot of times I'll just leave them.
Yeah. And sometimes musicians are like that. Once they get into their zone, they don't stop. Like, I'm the same. You almost don't want to stop recording while somebody is really feeling the song. Like, rather let them do what they do. And I understand completely that you would find it so difficult to now have to edit out some of the best parts. Like, how do you even do that?
Yeah,
I wanted to say the one of the funny moments when I was watching the John Coltrane documentary was that some of the musicians would be so pissed that it's a 45-minute song if somebody dares make a mistake during the recording, because that time everyone was recording, the band was recording at the same time, so it had to be kind of like a live recording. Like, if you do make a bad
yeah,
mistake at 38 minutes, you are
yeah.
really.
I can remember once I was in the studio with Mike Logan, and so usually it's that when I come in with the composition, I want them to play throughout. So a lot of people will say, "Hey man, give me like give me 8 bars and I'll copy and paste." I think that you lose the I think that you lose like the flow. Like I give you a prime example. Mike is playing like an 8 bar solo, but then when he plays, but like when he plays the move synth bass throughout the whole track, he's doing so much movement,
Yeah.
and that's what I want. And he says to me, he said, "Man, you got to pay me more money, Vic. These records too damn long." You know, he said, "Man, you will be playing." I come in with a like 11-minute composition. I say, Mike, I want you to play the bass for 11 minutes because I know within those 11 minutes he's going to do some crazy movement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
it's I mean, like we laugh about it. He's been working with me long enough to know how I like it. So when he sees me, he just sort of shakes his head. Oh man, I'm in for a long day. Yeah, Mike, man, you're in for a real long day. So, I mean, like we have fun with it, and like they enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, but there's an important part that you mentioned there with regards to how musicians play. So our songs are usually fairly simple. Like, once a real musician gets a hang of the structure of the song, they'll do the song. So musicians tend to get bored easily. So they will play what you ask them to play, maybe for the first 16 bars or something like that, or even 8 bars. Soon after
Yeah,
that, you see them, like you say, going all over, like trying to get more variations, just to kind of like also not get bored with the song. But what we get out of that as producers, you get so much great variations. Like, it doesn't sound like a copy and paste, like we said, it
exactly,
actually sounds like a
exactly.
live recorded song. You know what I mean?
Right, right, and that's what I'm going for. Because I've bought so many records that I would love the first 5 minutes of it. And then it becomes monotonous after that. It doesn't really go anywhere. And like the thing about doing tracks as opposed to songs, the reason I would rather do songs is that it takes you on a journey, right? It takes you, I mean, like listening to a Vic Lavender record that probably at about 6 minutes is going to do something totally different, which is going to keep you interested in the record.
Yeah,
And then, like even within that vamp, it's going to be a call and response thing
yeah.
to where like you have a 16 bar solo of this, a 16 bar solo of that, a 16 bar solo of that. So like that there's different instrumentation coming.
Yeah, yeah.
And for for me, I make records that I would want to play all the time. And so like that's why I make them in the vein that I do.
Yeah, yeah. Another record like that, which I find like one of my favorites, a remix that Glen Underground did for you, "What a Poor Boy Wants." What a song
Yeah,
too, also a big
genius,
song
right?
here, right?
Genius record, man.
Yeah,
Like from
man.
a genius.
And the question that I want to get to, though, with regards to not only that record, that kind of brotherhood and camaraderie that exists, or like, you would, where you would get Glen Underground to do something for you, you do the same. You'd get Abika Soul for you to do something for you as well. Um, do you still do that? Are you still like working with the guys, or are you still kind of in contact, if anything?
You know, things things people change a little bit, and I mean, like I haven't talked to either one of those guys in a while. But I mean, I totally respect their art, though, man. I mean, if it wasn't for people like Glenn Underground and Ron Trent, Marshall Jefferson, like Lil Lewis, Larry Heard, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you because the music that I make, like they made people listen to early.
Mm,
So I was able to come behind and sort of put like put my spin on it, and it was accepted because those guys have sort of paved the way for me to come behind them and make the music I make.
mm.
So I mean, I have crazy respect for all those dudes.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, like most of the guys are still active producers, but I'm interested to know your view with regards to um, Chicago and some of the changes that happened throughout the Chicago scene. Like, but mostly right now, I wanna know just like how the scene is right now when you look at um, obviously pre-COVID, pre all of this lockdown and quarantine issues. How was the scene in Chicago? What is your view with regards to where Chicago is right now in terms of house music?
Well, Chicago is its own entity. Like when you come to Chicago, you can hear house music like you can hear 7 nights a week. It's just, are you is that what you're into? Chicago is a classic city. Like they love their classics. And to be honest, it took us a while to get to where people like myself and the Ron Trents and the Glenn Undergrounds are like it took us until now to get the respect because people weren't used to that sound. If you didn't sound a certain way, or if you didn't play a certain way, if the music you wasn't making wasn't a certain way, they considered you as sort of this avant-garde person who didn't get the culture here, which is not true because we all grew up in the same culture. We just took different lanes to get to where we are. Um, but Chicago is a classic city, man. And Chicago, I think, will always be a classics town. The only way it wouldn't be a classics town is if the youth got involved.
Mm.
And I can't see that happening anytime soon. Um, it is, how can I put this without being rude? It is, I love my city, man. I love it to death. But it took us a while to get to where classics wasn't the only thing that was out there. I mean, people like myself knew it, but we were on an island. Like we didn't really have the support. I think that now it's better. I think that we're starting to get the support. I mean, like you have people like Eric Williams, who owns the Silver Room. He's always been an advocate of like the stuff that we make, and then he's always created a platform
Mm.
for us to be able to perform that music and be able to perform, like to be able to DJ freely
Mm.
and not feel like we had to conform to what a lot of people here thought it was.
Mm.
So I give Eric Williams a shit ton load of respect, man, because I think he was one of the pioneers. Without being a DJ, he created a platform for us to be able to play this music. So
Yeah.
I think Chicago is in a place where where I think we're still catching up, but I think we're doing a great job of starting to realize that there was more out there than just classics.
Yeah. I was speaking to Terry Hunter as well on the show. He had a similar answer too, like because I asked him a similar question about Chicago, and he was telling me about how in the 90s, like early 90s, where he kind of like was getting really getting into the scene now, and he would try break out like new records that were not sounding like classic disco type of songs, and he would have such a difficult time, like with the flow really clearing up and people not really, no one really, oh, very few people wanting to listen to something different. I think when people are have gotten it and fell in love with a certain thing and wanting to stick to only that thing, like it can become a gift and a curse in the same way. And he said a similar thing, but I want to know, just in when you mentioned that you don't see young people getting back into liking or getting in love with house music again, specifically in Chicago. Why is that? What is it that influences young people right now that side?
Well, I don't know if this is the right answer. It's just my opinion. Well, America as a whole, it's not just Chicago. Um, I think in America, and this is also a blessing and a curse. I think that the black youth here are so creative that they can create something and move on from it, because there's another black kid somewhere that's creating something else that's going to catch on and move what's current out. And but like with house music though, um, I just think I think for some strange reason it just had a time and a place here.
Mm,
Like I said, it's still very relevant from a particular age group,
mm,
but it doesn't go really beyond that age group. Now, when you go to places like Atlanta, like they're a little younger, like New York is a melting pot. So like so like you have the different nationalities that are into it there, as well as Atlanta. Chicago is very segregated. Blacks live here, whites live here. So like you don't get that intermingling the way that you used to do in the 90s. Something happened. And so, I think that plays a part in it as well.
mm,
But I think in America as a whole, I don't think the youth is into house music because of how it's been portrayed. It has always been portrayed as like it started as a gay black thing. And so that has been portrayed throughout time, and it's sort of moved some people away, and like the youth is not really into it because it doesn't necessarily have that male bravado, that like that braggadocious thing.
mm.
Like house music is spiritual, man,
Yeah.
and I don't think hip hop as a whole like possesses that spiritual realm
Mm,
that house music possesses.
mm,
And I think those things kind of play a part in why the youth is not that motivated to listen to house music here. And
yeah.
it's like the perception that all house music sounds the same, and that's where the radio, us not being able to be on the radio here, has really sort of pushed that narrative to like the youth. Like like when you talk to a kid now and you mention house music, he'll say techno,
Yeah.
which is not at all, you know. So
Yeah, no, I get you. But if you had some advices with regards to our scene in South Africa, I mean, we've got a dope scene. I like how colorful it is, how we also have different types of house music existing, at the same time, and most importantly, also having the youth really backing this music up, which is the biggest thing for me because I feel for the future, for the future of any genre to have its own self uh, existence, like kind of like to always be there for the genre to be relevant. You need to have the youth. You need to have young people being interested in it. If you had some advices for, because I've got some fears of my own, with regards to house music in South Africa. As much as it's big and I respect it, and I love the fact that we've got this really vibrant scene, but at the same time, I do worry a bit because of it was big in Chicago, it was big in Detroit too. What are some of the things we could really do more to sustain the scene here in South Africa, just in your own view?
Well, as long as you guys have radio support, and as long as you guys have personalities on radios that's going to push the art, I think you guys will be just fine. I think that once the radio support disappears, that if it ever disappears, I think then like you'll see a decline because the next thing that's on the radio that will become the thing for the next 20 years. And it's just like keeping the youth involved, man, because the youth is the future. I mean, like that, it's like that 14-year-old kid is going to grow up to be a radio personality.
Yeah.
And if he likes house music, well, guess what? He's going to push house music. And so I think keeping the youth engaged will basically, like will basically push it into the future.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Uncle Vic. I have to ask you what's next for you then? Like, what are some of the projects that are coming from Sophisticado? Because I can see, on specifically on your Bandcamp, the last release was the set fire to me, and
Yeah,
what's next? What are some of the things that you have lined up?
I have a few things happening. Right now, we're working on doing a live stream con a live stream concert with the entire band. We are working on that. That's in the works, and I have a new release dropping on RNS Records. And then, as far as the vinyl setup is coming, the next vinyl release will probably be in March of 2021 because I'm trying to wait to see what happens with the COVID thing,
Mm.
and that's going to be the Love Project, and that features on vocals that features Angel A, Spike Rebel, D Mills, and my man Rosso.
Nice.
And that's going to be a 12-inch release with a Rosso remix and a Vic Lavender remix on the flip side.
Mm.
And then we have the Angel A project, which is called Angel A Secret Sessions. So we have that on coming out on vinyl. So these are all 2021 release vinyls. And then I did a joint with Ron Carroll. Then Angel A is going to record a vocal to the instrumental Girl.
Oh
Now
yeah.
that's gonna be crazy
Oh damn.
because if you know Angel, Angel can get it, and so I'm really excited about that. So these will all be 2021 releases with a few things, probably being moved around a little bit. So those are the things I could think of immediately that I have coming. Oh, and I have the Robert Owens remix.
Yeah.
It's called Tonight, and that's going to be on a label called Wistful Old Junkies. He said that'll be out in September. So
Nice.
I'm waiting to see when that comes out. But yeah, I'm always recording, man. Who knows? And then I'm looking forward to seeing you guys 2021. My man Picat, DJ Picat. I mean, like we were all set to go. I mean, man, he had worked it out with my agent, and I was supposed to be there. I was supposed to be there on July 9th,
Mm.
like this past July. But because of the COVID thing, we had to kind of nix that, and so we're looking at 2021. Me coming in and spending some time with you guys.
Bro, like I'm so looking forward to that, man. Like I'm really stoked for that, even for the projects too. Because for me, like the music is one thing that has kept people going during this lockdown in a big way.
Yeah,
Yeah, it hasn't been easy for many people, musicians, and whether or not you're a musician, like just generally for a lot of people, this
yeah.
has been a very tricky time, and to see and hear new music always coming through, I'm always super excited. You mentioned something that I wanted to ask you about quickly before we finish. The some of the things that you had to get used to doing, or that shifted your way of doing things because of this lockdown. What are some of those things for you?
Well, I think I, obviously COVID is not a good thing, but if you're an entrepreneur, this is the time for you to take advantage of your art. And so, just kind of like sitting back and being able to strategize what you're going to do and what you have planned, and also just taking some initiative to be more involved with the way your art is sold, the way it's packaged. Um, because a lot of times, we'd be so busy touring or like DJing that the actual presentation, unless you have somebody specifically in that lane, like the presentation suffered a little bit. So now I'm able to kind of sit back and work on the presentation and work on the time that the records will be released. So it's just, it's um, COVID has made you sort of sit back and rethink the way that you operate.
Mm,
And
mm,
so, as far as recording, it hasn't changed anything because we've always recorded a lot of records.
yeah.
It's just that we record more now, and so I'm able to kind of delve into the actual process of it. I've always been hands on. Anybody who works with me will tell you Vic is very hands on in the way the record sounds. So now I'm able to play more keyboards.
Mm,
I'm able to soundscape a little more. And like on top of working with my guys, I'm able to have more of an impact on how that specific record will be sound.
mm,
Because if you've noticed that my sound has changed a little bit,
yeah.
like I'm digging more into synthesizers now, which is
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
I've always been a Pat Metheny fan. I've always been a Jeff Loper fan. And so now, like like Dexter Wanzel, I've always been a fan of these guys and the way they use synths. So now I'm able to play a little bit like that. So I'm able to soundscape a little more. So that would be probably the biggest difference is that I really had a chance to sit down at the keyboard and then play a lot of my own parts as far as synth solos and stuff like that.
Yeah. Bro, I cannot finish this our conversation without asking you about cigars. Like, what's your thing with cigars?
I've been smoking for a long time, man. It actually it's like a calming mechanism. Um, for me, like I smoke when I'm at home by myself. It's like a calming I can go outside and water the grass and sit on the porch and smoke a cigar, and it's like a calming mechanism for me. So it's become part of me and who I am. It's not for show at all because it's a very expensive habit,
Yeah.
and I would say that I have a habit. It's a very expensive habit, so it's not for the cheap. Yep, it's a luxury lifestyle.
Man, yeah, it's quite something that I don't know if I will be able to sustain it if I were get into that that habit. But man, I just want so just still on the cigar thing. Do you then always couple it with your with a cognac?
Nah, it's
Okay,
whiskey. It's always whiskey, bourbon, or scotch,
yeah,
or even a good rum. It's always dark.
yeah,
Trevor doesn't drink dark. He and Vinny drinks tequila, and
yeah,
I cannot drink tequila.
yeah.
Me and tequila don't get along.
Man, Trev will make you drink tequila like yes, yes. Anyway,
Man, that guy, man,
him and
that
Vinny.
guy.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, Bravik, I just want to say thank you so much for spending this time with me and sharing some parts of your story. Like I think you're such an inspirational artist, one of the people who remain true to your guns. You stick to your guns, you remain true to your art, and we can definitely feel it and hear it in the music. So I want to say thank you for that, bro.
Hey, bro. First of all, it was an honor to be here. Thank you for having me, man. It means a lot for me to talk to my South African brothers and sisters, man. I miss you guys, and I miss SA as a whole. So hopefully I'll see you guys soon. It was an honor for me to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope to see you soon, probably in 2021 at Pickett's thing. And
You got
I
it,
really
man.
hope that you stay for longer than a weekend.
Oh, listen, man, I'm not going anywhere for a couple months. I'm telling you now.
Sure, sure, sure thing, sure thing. Otherwise, like for everyone who's watching, thank you for watching this.